Welcome back. This is kind of a special episode for me. It's not going to be particularly long, but it's something I've been working on for, I guess, 3 years now. It shouldn't have taken that long. It was supposed to be really quick. I was going to do this. My friend Reggie Moore was working for me at the time, and we drug it out of it was covered with moss and green stuff, and the windows were growing up green. So it'd been sitting under the trees back here for, I don't know, 5 years probably. So it was really nasty. We dug it out. It was on a chassis, like a 78 motorhome chassis. It was real long, had the 78 suspension and rear end in it, but it was a low mile chassis. It was just long and ugly and rusty and no motor or transmission, just a rear end with leaf springs. I was just gonna put this thing together quickly to have something cool to drive, leave it in patina, but that turned into a lot more detail. Like everything I do, it usually explodes and gets complicated, and Debbie says you never do anything easy, and I don't. But the 55 sitting there kind of got in the way. I was working on this, and I came up with this idea, and Alex jumped on it. So that got in the way. Tom Bailey's Nomad got in the way, and it all happened at the same time. Sick Week got in the way. So this only gets worked on once in a while when I have a few minutes or a weekend. I rarely ever work on it during the week, but it's almost ready, and I've got to have it ready for the PRI show. This is September 30th, so I've got a couple months to get it ready for the PRI show. I just wanted to introduce you to it. Some of you have seen it, lots of you have asked questions and want to see it finished, and I'm trying, believe me. I'm going to try to work on it here pretty quick. I've got the stuff to build the bed. I've got the stuff to do the interior. I'm ready to put fenders, hoods, and doors on. Windows, that's the next big thing. You got to make wipers work and put the windows in, make the power windows and the doors go up and down, because it did have wing windows naturally. And I'm taking that out and putting one-piece windows. I've got those cut, but I've got to get inside the doors and make runners. Those runners are going to be hard because the doors are almost solid steel inside these things. There's just a little access hole somewhere. I think it's down at the bottom in the back, and a little hole up here where the interior panel on these was only that tall. I don't know if I'm going to do the whole door in leather. I may end up cutting some of it out, but I have painted the inside of the doors just like I have the inside of the cab. So it's ready to go. But I've got to get in there to get those window regulators and all that stuff in. This thing was originally red. You can see that's the original color of it right there. So it's not that far off of what I've painted the firewall and interior. What I did was, when we pulled this out and it was moss covered, green, dirty, rusty, nasty, I didn't want to paint it. I didn't want to go through that. It was just going to be a quick and easy truck. But I really like the patina. It was painted with a brush. Look at this right here. You can see somebody and I'm basically the second owner. I'm technically the third owner, but the second owner didn't own it for very long. He never registered anything. So this was painted from the original people. It was on I think it was a lumber yard or a sawmill or something to that effect in Oklahoma. And it was originally a red truck, but they painted it black and they've got some white on it. I guess the roof, maybe it was originally white, but I only had the patch from here down and the bottom of the doors, I think, just the outer skin. The rest of it's rust free. I mean, I put a patch in the roof back here above the window. You can see right here that it was just rusted along here. And I cut this out. I put this on Facebook a few years ago. I cut it out and I made this panel to go in here, and I welded and ground and welded and ground. I didn't want to disturb any more of it than I had to. I'd love to get these dents out, but that's a double panel. I can't get to it, and I'm not gonna worry too much about it. But I rusted this back the best I could before I clear coated it. and it's good enough. That was the only other rust. Then the bottom of the cab corners here, and I just didn't do any Bondo. I just welded back. That's the paint that came on the patch panel, and I just sprayed a little spray can over the weld before I put it back together, and I welded the gas cap on the other side. But look at the runs. That's pretty cool. So it was painted with a brush. It's kind of falling apart, you know, the paint's falling off of it, but it's sealed with clear now. The rust actually looks really good and clear. I like it. But all this in here, the floors is obviously totally custom because I had the whole inside of it cut out. I left the toe boards and the firewall, but all this has to clear the engine, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I welded up all the holes in the dash. Got some glue on there that's got to come off. I think I had that sticker up there. I've got the Dakota digital analog gauges. Let's see if I can light those up. Yeah, look at that. How cool is that? So it'll have the Dakota digital gauges. It has a really nice Kenwood stereo, and it's going to have a Holley digital dash down here. So I've got both of them working. I've got these all reading, and so is the Holley dash, which is quite a feat actually. It's running off a Dominator, Holley Dominator. You couldn't do that with the Terminator because you have to have two separate CAN buses. This one has to read by the Holley dash is Holley. This is, I can't say it right now. It's a different kind of CAN bus. It's the gauge, the race pack. This has to read off a race pack CAN bus. So you actually have to have two separate CAN buses to do it, and only the Dominator has that. So I shift, it's drive-by-wire, so I need a Dominator or a Terminator X Plus for that, and it controls a 4L80 transmission. So it's doing a lot of stuff. Drive-by-wire transmission, the CAN bus for the dash, whatever else. I don't need all the features a Dominator has, but it's really the only thing that'll work in here. And we've got a lot of money in the gauges and the Holley dash, so I don't want to not use something. I'd already set the console up. I built this console out of aluminum, and it's going to be completely covered in red leather to match these seats. We had James Carter do the seats, world famous James Carter that does Jesse James motorcycle seats and a lot of other people's really high-end interior. He's in Northwest Arkansas, and I thought I'd have this ready last year for the PRI show in SEMA, but I just couldn't get it done. James couldn't get the seats done. He had some death in the family that messed him up, and it just didn't happen. So since we weren't in a hurry after we missed the PRI show, I've just let it sit, and I've worked on it when I can. But the console will match this, the whole interior, the headliner will match, and the back of the cab will be leather. The carpet, I think we picked a gray color for the carpet.
It's been too long, I forgot.
Yeah, it's been so long.
I think it is gray.
I think the carpet's a dark gray. It kind of matched the outside of the truck. But this is pretty cool. Power window switches will be here. It's got the Holley Pro Dash in it. The air conditioner's in it. The air conditioner switches will be below the dash there. This has got a nice heavy lid. That'll be a nice storage compartment. It'll set up higher than what it sits there. It'll set up on this floor. This floor, I didn't want to put a hump forward. I was really looking forward to a flat floor across there. But as it turns out, you'll see when I made the manifold, I converted a tunnel ram and turned it into a tall tunnel ram for EFI, for a big block. This has got a big block in it. And it's actually up in here, the throttle body's here, and the air cleaner is in here. So it really had to have it, and it's not really a problem. I've had the seats in here, I've sat in the thing, and people ask me, you know, if I can fit in it. It's actually very comfortable. We've all sat in it for a good practice fit, and it's way more comfortable than you would think. The steering wheel's all tilt. I did something kind of unique here, or very unique. I didn't want a shifter in the console. That's just too everyday. I didn't want a shifter up here. This was a shifter out of somebody's Camaro that we did. And so it's a Camaro shifter that's made to go down here but turn around backwards. It's supposed to pull back like this and go on the console of the Camaro. But I fixed it, I cut it up, turned it around, re-gated it for a 4L80 and then welded this lip on and put a cable. Originally I made it a hydraulic shifter because I'm going to show you why here in just a minute, but now it's a cable, so it works really nice. So it's kind of cool to have something different. It reminds me of the old Dodge vans from the 60s, and I like it a lot. It's out of my way, it works good, and the stereo is just killer. It does more stuff than I can ever imagine. We've got remote start, remote power windows, remote door locks. I can't even remember what all. Pretty much if they make it, I've got it for this thing. So I left the factory ashtray. The glove compartment has got vintage air up underneath. Billet specialty steering wheel and steering column, or not the steering columns, I did it. The drop is billet specialty. The pads are billet specialties. It's drive-by-wire, so it's got a nice pedal. I've of course had to rework all of that stuff to make it work. But the vintage air is here. I'll make a cover. This will be red leather or carpet. I'm not real sure. The air ride will also be in the console. All the controls for the air conditioner will be in the console. This is for the Holly dash. And then there'll be room behind the seats. It's actually got quite a bit of room. I've got shoulder belt attaching points and seat belt attaching points for the retractables down here. I'm thinking if I have time, I've got a molded one-piece headliner that I'll only have to cover with leather, and it fits up in here already pre-made from the factory. But if I have time, I'm going to do a console up here, and I'm going to put speakers. I've got some really nice let's see, what brand speaker do I have? I can't even remember, but I've got 4-inch I think rounds that'll go in the corners, and then I've got 2 6x9s that'll go behind the seat. I don't need the most ultimate stereo, but I do want it to sound really good. Got the 22-inch wheels on it that have been cut down to, you know, they're 22.5s, but they've been cut down to 22s. This is my favorite part. For all you older people out there, I know you hate it. That makes me like it even more. When I see this, when I post pictures of this, I get some comments about, I love the truck, but I hate the lug nuts. I love the lug nuts. My favorite part of the whole thing. I'm actually going to make them out of billet aluminum and polish them. These are plastic, and my fear is somebody that hates them is going to come along and kick them and break them. But if they're aluminum, guess what? They're going to hurt their foot. And I think I can make that. But I think they make the truck. They're aggressive, they're mean, they're nasty, they don't look right, and I love it. But the back ones, look at that. I mean, that looks like, that's almost race car. Look how deep that is with those bitchin' lug nuts in there, the polished 22s. I think it looks so right. So the other thing is, this chassis was just a labor of love. I spent way more time on this than anybody should ever spend on a stock frame. I should have made it from scratch. Looking back, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But it turned out so excellent. I'm just glad I don't have to do it again. I boxed it, and I'll show you here when I raise the cab. I see these trucks all the time on my Facebook pages, and they flop them down on a pickup truck chassis that's swoopy, and you know, it's up over the rear axle, and they just look like a pickup chassis. And I just didn't want that. I wanted something smooth and straight and really designed to fit the truck. So instead of just letting the truck or the frame be one level, I Z'd it, I narrowed it. I think it's double Z'd. It's narrowed in the front. It's the stock width in the back, from the cab back. But I also narrowed the rear end. You can see it's very close to the chassis. I've got it as narrow as I can make it, trying to make it, my goal was to be able to park this in a regular car parking spot. And it's the same wheelbase as my dually. Let me think about that a minute. It's actually a little narrower than the dually. It's an 8-foot bed. but I don't think it's the same. I think it's the same as a regular dually or regular 3/4 ton or 1 ton long wheelbase truck. It's been so long now since I've done it, I forgot. I can't tell you what the wheelbase is, but it's long enough that it's gonna ride and do good. I did these 4 links, just kind of cartoonish. I could have stopped them at a normal length right here. What fun would that be? Yeah, I know. Somebody's gonna say, but they're weak, they're not gonna hold up. Well, they really aren't. They're DOM tubing and they're heavy wall. So they're actually heavier than, you're not building a race car. I've got them very heavy. I don't think there's gonna be any problem. The back of this thing will always be too light. It's never gonna hook up. I don't think the 4 link's gonna be any trouble, but they just look good going the full length like that. So I made a wishbone. I didn't want a panhard bar or any Watts link. I don't want any of that. I don't want a diagonal. You can't really have a diagonal when you got 5 foot long 4 link. So I made a wishbone just like the 55 or any of the race cars that I do, except a little bit heavier. I made it out of the same tubing that I made the 4 link out of. It slides right here. Works so cool. So the steel center section or cast center section, this tube welds on the rear end tubes. It comes over and it's actually welded here, tigged both sides, and then these brackets attached for the slider that slides in and out. I can raise it up and down here a little bit and show you, but the airbags are behind the axle, the shocks are in front. The airbags, everything moves so well. It moves up and down about 8 inches. So the shocks are double adjustable QA1s on all 4 corners. And then it's got 3-inch stainless exhaust, and I wanted the old Flowmaster sound. So I did everything TIG welded. Most of it's polished, the tailpipes aren't, but the headers and all the rest of it is. The mufflers are not. But it's all band clamped together so I can remove the exhaust in multiple pieces and get it out of here. I've got you can't see it, but underneath in front of the mufflers is a really nice Y. I made it out of 2 U-bends, and it Ys and joins together, all TIG welded really nice. Goes back out to the headers that I made for the truck. I made them on the truck. I've got a gooseneck receiver here, and I've got a bumper pull hitch back here. All this frame is plated inside with 1/4 inch. So the frame itself is actually 1/4 inch. It's heavy, heavy, heavy. This inner panel is 1/4 inch. So this whole frame is backbreakingly heavy, but it's a truck. It's supposed to be that way. I went ahead and reused the factory 1978 drum brakes. I know should have disc brakes on it, but I promise the drum brakes will work. Everything was in such good shape. I just put new parts in it, new wheel cylinders, new shoes, and I think I got new drums. If I didn't, I turned them. I don't remember at this point, but it's all, the rear end is stock. I've even got the stock gear ratio. It's a 411. I intend someday to put a taller gear in it, but these are perfect. I just put grease in it last week. The rear end cover, everything is, it's really, I think it looks really good. It's all painted semi-gloss PPG global black with all the gold anodized or oxided bolts. So the stuff looks so clean in that black paint. The tank, it's a little bit of a pain. I wanted to put originally beer kegs right here. I was gonna have 2, and I actually dug up 2, but they didn't match, and I couldn't find 2 that were in good enough shape for me. I want really nice ones, aluminum 60s or 70s, whatever type beer kegs. But the more I thought about it, because I intended to daily this thing, if I ever got center punched and that gas tank's right there, there's nothing to protect it. I mean, it would just be like a Pinto. It would just explode. So I just couldn't bring myself to do that. If I ever get center punched with this, the car is going to blow up. The frames might bend a little bit. This thing is like truck frame heavy. So I built this tank, and I don't remember the capacity. It's way more than you'd think. It's like 32 gallons, somewhere in that area. And I put dual filler necks on it. So if I pull up to the gas pump, one of the things that really sucks is when you pull up to the gas pump and the only one available is on the wrong side of the truck. You have to run around the gas pumps and pull in, and somebody beats you to it. I can pull into the gas station and fill up from either side. So the gas tank's about this deep, the transmission's under. To take the gas tank out, you'd have to take the drive shaft out and the exhaust down, but you can get it out over the top of the transmission if you had to. It's really not too bad, but the lower 4-link, you take one out and get it out of the way. You can get under there with a jack and work on it. I've thought all this stuff through pretty good. These are welded to the body underneath. You'll see when I raise it up here. So it's on air ride, obviously. When I let it down, these come about an inch off the ground, and the running boards hang down a little bit more than that. So the running boards are 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch off the ground, and this thing's bottomed completely out. So be able to stand on these to get in the truck, ride on the side of them through the fairgrounds or whatever. Those things are super stout, and they fit the running boards perfectly. And then you've got the aprons here and the apron back here that just works so well. The front fenders, obviously, I got to trim this up a little bit, so when it's down on the bump stops, I need just a little bit more clearance to keep this tire out of here, because right now it'll go down, and I don't have the bump stops on the front, but it'll go down and pretty much set on the tire. When I get the bump stops put back in, I'll keep it fixed where it's just barely off of the tire. Moving forward, got this Ultra Wizard radiator. I had them build me the biggest radiator that could fit in here, and then when I thought, I have plenty of room, there's never going to be an issue. Well, it was a little more challenging than I thought. Real estate gets used up really quick when you start packing all this stuff in. I put the biggest air conditioner condenser that I can put in there, because that's the secret to making an air conditioner cool. More air you flow over that condenser, the better. The bigger the condenser, the better. Got the transmission cooler up front here. That'll all be behind the grill. When it's set down, got two 16-inch Spall digital fans. So these things are bad boys. They only come on as needed. They run as fast as needed. So they're blowing back. They're kind of cramped, but it's going to have plenty of cooling. It's never going to be an issue. This is an old hydraulic pump off the lift gate of a truck that I've had at least 30 years. It was stored in an old shed, and it's just, I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I didn't know if it worked. When I started this project, I went out, dug it out, hooked it up to a battery. It started running, started messing with it, took it apart, cleaned it, and it works beautiful. It's manual, and it'll let down manual with this, and electric. That's an electric solenoid. So these hoses were off of, Debbie ordered those out of somewhere online, and they were already factory made, the length. Now, the cab tilts. I haven't got to that yet. That's the cool part of this truck. I wanted the cab to tilt. In order to tilt and do it properly, the cab has to move away from the bed, because I don't want a big gap. I don't want this cab coming up and hitting the bed. I want the bed to be really close to the cab here, like it should be. But in order to do that, I had to put the pivot as far forward and far down as I could do it, as it could be done. So right here is some billet aluminum pivot blocks that bolt onto my front cross member.
Wait. Where is it? What happened to the camera? He's still recording.
These billet aluminum pivot blocks bolt onto the front cross member across the frame, and you'll see more when I raise the cab. But they're designed where when they're tightened down through these two Allen bolts here, that 1.5-inch tubing is just got enough clearance inside, and I can grease it, that the tube will roll inside of those big blocks of aluminum. That's how the cab pivots at the front. So all of this has got an extra plate welded on the firewall. It's got an extra plate down here. All of this stuff is very structural because it's all held right here. So the big concern is when it tilts, it's bending this structure. It doesn't. And I spent a lot of time thinking about it and making it right. and it works fantastic. Right now, the cab's so light without the seats and the doors that I actually have to give it a little nudge to get it started down. Once it's down low enough, it'll keep falling. But once you get the seats and the doors in it, which I've had, it's heavy enough when you raise it all the way up, you let it down and it'll just go down by itself nice and slow. So none of this doesn't bend, flex, or move at all. So that's all well thought out and shirt tail engineered structure to make this cab tilt. Let me raise the cab. One other thing right here. This is where I was going with this originally. This is the steering. So on the frame, I turned the stock 1-ton steering box straight up. So instead of the pitman arm going like this, like it does on most any car off of the steering box, the pitman arm goes like this. And it connects everything just like it's supposed to. I narrowed the front frame 8 inches, and then I narrowed the control arms, I think it was 5/8 or 3/4 a piece. So the front end is very narrow compared to a 1-ton. With the factory wheels, that thing would be out here 9 inches, 9.5 inches further. So the truck looks big, but it's actually very small. This is all tucked in really tight. The frame was narrowed that much. You'll see when I raise it up. But in order to get it to tilt, you have to disconnect this. But in order to connect it, it's really pretty simple. And my switch to tilt this is up here in the front, where I can't really forget to take it out, but that just goes in like that. A couple bolts go in. It's so dark in here, I don't know if I can see to put them in. And I'll have to have a wrench handy all the time. Yeah, that's right. So there's another one goes in down here. But when that's all put together, that's all supported. Now the steering works really good, and the power steering works. So before I tilt the cab, I always have to remember to loosen this, or it can make a mess. The problem with it is there's just no other way to do it. I would love to leave it hooked up, but trust me, there's no way to do it. I'm gonna have a nice wrench made to sit right here. I'll clip it into something, and my switch is right here. So I've got tape over it right now, but I'll have a remove before flight thing on it, so I don't forget to remove that before I open the cab. The brakes look like manual, don't they? Just no booster. Well, there really is. It's a hydraulic booster. It's in here. So it's behind the dash. It's all made in to work. The hoses go in right here. This is the 3 hoses off of the power steering pump for the hydro boost. And so it's power brakes. All that's done. There's the shift cable. This is all the Holley wiring. I made special billet clamps, and I could have done better. I thought I knew what I was doing, but I keep adding wires, and that's just part of it. So some of the wires are actually running on the outside, but I wanted to clamp these Dash 6 PTFE power steering and power brake hoses into these clamps. So they've got their own little notches. The Holley goes through here, and then it clamps to the bar. I just made all this stuff on my mill myself. And you can see over here, it's pretty cool the way the hoses fit in there. Yeah, that's better. So you can see the hoses in here, and then the wiring on the big hole on the outside, and then it's clamped to the bar. So as much stuff as it has to move when this cab is tilted, you see here. You got to move the air conditioner hoses, you got to move the heater hoses, you have to move the shifter cable, you have to move the brake hoses. Everything has to bend and flex when this cab opens. I've spent a lot of time making it where, and it really moves very little. What I did, instead of making it where it has to move like this with the cab, I put it from one side to the other. That's why this stuff goes across like that. So when it opens, they really just kind of twist. So as this cab tilts forward, the hoses just twist a little bit. They really don't move that much. If I looped them, then you would have this effect. You'd have to bend the hoses a lot, and not that that would be a real problem, but it's real ugly. So everything moves very little. You got the air conditioner, the heater, all the Holly wiring, the drive-by wiring, the power brake -6s, they run back to the pump. There's just a lot going on up here, but it all works spotless. The brake hoses are all on. So what we'll do, you can see the fenders back here. They were really good. I beat them out where they needed to be beat out, and I don't think I had any rust to repair on these. I had some dents I had to work out. This, I've got the factory black ribbed rubber stuff that will go back in here or on here. I left all the patina, the scratches and everything just like it. It took it a long time to get those scratches. I think it deserves to keep them. And then everything inside was sandblasted to raw metal, epoxy primed, and it's got bed liner inside of the hood, the fenders underneath the cab, the running boards. Everything under it's perfect. Outside, not so much. I like that. I like the stained, rough look of it. So one of my next things, I even left the cowl vent. The cowl vent, if I can find the lever in the dark right here. So even though it has air conditioning, it has cowl vent, which I just like that part of it. This I've got kind of blocked on the inside, and if any water that gets in will run out. I didn't want to have an open panel inside. I didn't see the point in doing that. So let's tilt the cab and I'll show you the heart, the good part. It'll probably go just a little bit higher than that. I hate when I bottom the pump out. Yeah, that bottomed out. If you run it up and don't stop, or try to be a little bit careful with it, you hear the pump load up. So I don't like to do that. So here's the good stuff, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's a little bit of a pain, but you know, almost everybody does one of these, puts a Cummins in it. Very common. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just not a diesel guy. It is cool, but to put a Cummins underneath this thing would be another chore. I don't want to, what would you call it? Cab in front of engine. I want a cab over engine, COE. That's what it's supposed to be, and that's what I have. This thing was a gas truck originally. It had a 6-cylinder in it. So I'm not ashamed to have a gas motor in it. This is a bitchin' gas engine. It's 100 over 454 with a 4 3/8 stroke. So it makes it 520 cubic inches. It's got AFR big oval ports. It's got the biggest oval port that AFR makes. And I did that on purpose. I could have just as easy had a square port head, but this is that. I don't even remember this, the CC of the head. It's the biggest one they make. And I wanted oval port. I had an old tunnel ram, Edelbrock, that was an oval port manifold, and it matched the oval ports. I made it match the oval ports in the head perfectly. So what I did was from here down is Edelbrock, and then I put the bungs in it for the injectors, put the rails on it, and made these injectors work. I think these are 43 pound injectors. And then I fabricated the top and the front, and I did have to make an adapter here because I had the throttle body turned sideways like you would think it should be, but it hits my floor. So I turned the throttle body down, the motor's hanging down, and that's what this adapter actually is. So I kind of goofed up there, but this is, so my theory, it's also got a hydraulic roller in it, and so it's got a 4 3/8 stroke, so it's a long stroke, big cubic inch, and it's tunnel ram with oval port heads. So what's that make? That makes almost diesel torque. This thing will make a lot of torque, bottom end horsepower. So it's not going to be a high RPM motor, but it's got roller rockers and that roller hydraulic cam. So it'll be a real torque monster. And I built these headers. They're full length. They're band clamped on down here. So you can take everything apart. Right there's the band clamp. And they're, you know, they're long tube headers instead of just shorties. But everything's stainless steel. I TIG welded everything together. The manifold's all TIG welded, then I painted it black. It's got a dual sink distributor. Got an in-tank Holly pump. I think it's a Walbro pump. And then everything's plumbed with Red Horse. So the filter's here. 8 individual coils. So it's running off that air motive regulator. Fuel pressure regulators here. All that's just your typical hot rod stuff, and it sounds like a hot rod. It's got a big lumpy Isky cam, and then the Johnson short travel lifters, Isky Johnson short travel lifters. So the motor is really cool. It's got H-beam rods. It's got a forged steel 4 3/8 stroke crank, and then it's a 4.350 bore. So that's all really good. The motor is badass. It's got a Milodon oil pan on it. So we had a little technical difficulty with the mics there, had to interrupt, but I left off at the Milodon oil pan. The other thing, it's got Race Tech pistons, so it's got the same quality piston that the 55 has in it. They made them just for this engine, just for this combination. So again, 4 3/8 or 4 350 bore, 4 375 stroke. It's almost square, just a little bit more stroke than bore. But with the components that are in this thing, this is like a pretty good race car engine. So, but it's streetable, and that's what I want. I want something that sounds like a race car. I want you to hear it chopping when it comes up. I want the loudness and the rumble of the Flowmasters. But the nice thing about it, that cab is so insulated. The mufflers are way back here. They're going to be under the bed. They're not like Flowmasters with a Chevelle or a Camaro or something where you get that resonating in the cab and the rumble. I think they're far enough back that they'll sound really good inside and outside of the truck. So, excuse me, it's getting late. All of that is done. You can see here where the frame is Z'd. So I Z'd the frame 8 inches down. It used to come straight out of here. If I had run straight out, look how the front suspension up here would have to be dropped so much. Let me see if I can get this light around here to show it a little bit better. The front suspension it's got drop spindles on it, believe it or not, in order to get it this low. But that's pretty much aired down. You can see there's the shock travel is just exactly right. When it's aired up, that's the stock location for the shocks. As goofy as that looks, that's the factory location for this chassis. But the airbags are in stock location for the springs. The shocks are in their stock location. The control arms are narrowed, so you can see the 8-inch Z in the frame on the side, but then you see it Z back. Let's see, it Z's back up right here. So it ends up being like 4 inches Z'd at the cross member, right here at the control arms and the cross member. So I don't want to scratch, but that's grease. So it Z's up here, Z's down here to get everything. Look how easy the spark plugs are to get out. I can get to everything. So dropping the frame here, bringing it back up, and then you can see where it's kicked in. The whole frame is kicked in 4 inches on each side, which makes it 8 inches narrower in the center of the cross member. And then from the right here at the front of the control arms, it's got a 2x, I believe it's 2x5 that goes across. Solid piece of 2x5 heavy wall tubing, and then it goes into 2x4 and goes into this. So it Z's back down, way down, drops all the way down to the front. You can see my billet blocks that I made. They are drilled and tapped for these 2 3/8 bolts, and those 3/8 bolts are there. They go through a tube in the chassis so it can't crush it. Everything's got a tube. The steering box, everything has got tubes in the frame that are TIG welded in to hold the steering box. You can see it standing straight up here. Then you can see the gray air tank. It's got a nice big air tank here for the dual compressors that are down below. So there's 2 big Via Air compressors underneath. They're actually crammed in there. But the beauty is they're easy to get out because I drop them from the bottom. They're mounted on a plate underneath, and you can take some bolts out and drop the plate down, and you've got two of the biggest air compressors that they make pumping into that tank. I just pumped it up a little bit. I didn't fill it completely, but it's all set up to work and shut off when it gets to the pressure, and it's a lot of pressure. I don't remember, 150 pounds or something. Luckily, all of the suspension, I leave it aired up in here for months at a time, and it never moves. It has 0 leaks front and back. It'll stay aired up and never leak a drop right now. So that's really something that bugs me about air ride, is when it over time it drops down. But this is so far has been flawless. It doesn't leak at all. The radiator is mounted in with these struts. It's held down with struts, and it's sitting in a pocket on each side under here that's lined with Velcro actually. So the radiator is all really happy. It's sitting in a nice saddle on each side, and it's got struts that are allowing a little bit of flex. It just all works really well. You can see the Dominator that I'm using is actually the lightweight. That's why it's red. So it's one that we actually had as a spare for the race car, but it's now the spare for this. And then there's a rack of 4 digital or electronic relays down here underneath that controls the coils. 2 of them control coils, and 2 of them control the compressors. And then Air Ride Technologies 4-corner valving is right there. So everything is actually, it's packed in, but it's all where it works, where it should. Once I got all this put together, I had all this painted really nice with the bed liner and everything sealed up, then I had to go back and cut. So I've got to do some work to cap those still and touch up the paint. I want that to look good when it's tilted, and it does. It all looks so good, but I did have to modify that. But it all has rhyme and reason. It all comes out, it all fits back together. You just have to know how to do it. The battery, the big badass battery sitting over here, I didn't have room for 2, or I would have, but that's not just a parts store battery, so it's an excess power battery. It's a heavy duty battery. All that works. It's packed in, but it works so good. So then it's got a stage 4, Jake calls it, and I hate to say stage stuff, but Jake's Performance did the transmission. I originally built this transmission for Alex's Camaro. Jake built her an SFI cased one. So this is an original GM case, but it's got all the billet shafts, billet drums, Jake's valve body, second gear leave, trans brake, valve body. It's got everything in it that you can put in it, except the SFI case. So it's got Jake's valve body and then all the other good stuff. Jake built a converter for it. It's got a lockup converter, but he spec'd it for this thing. And it's it's just got race car parts. 411 gear rear end, the 520 cubic inch engine, torque monster. The air cleaner gets air straight through this cavity, so it'll come in the grill, go right over the top of the radiator, and right into the big air cleaner. The drive-by-wire seems to be flawless. It's got the Power Master alternator and starter. It's got the big Stewart water pump, and it's a reverse rotation pump. So I made all the brackets to put the stuff together. I made this bracket and bolted it to the head and got the pulleys lined up. All the air conditioner stuff over there. Look over here at it's got the little bitty, and I can't remember the number on this compressor. I've had this thing, is brand new, sealed up for years from Street and Performance, but I made a bracket to bolt to the head. Everything bolts to the front, so it's all out in front of the engine. Power steering pumps down here. I engineered all that stuff to be out in front of the head and work with this water pump. It's a long water pump instead of a short, and it all so far seems to be working really good. But the power steering you feel here, the power steering pump's running the brakes and the power steering. So far it seems good. Once I got sidetracked, once I set this cab down and got it to clear all this stuff and had to turn this throttle body up and down instead of sideways, I thought, how am I going to get radiator hoses? It's tight in here. So I ended up doing this, and it works really good. It doesn't hit anything. So the upper hose is aluminum with just the rubber ends. I've got these billet clamps to hold it. It's all flanged. The lower one was really more of an issue. I had to get it to that corner of the radiator out of the water pump, and there is no room. You've got steering in there. You've got all the hoses. I had to bore a hole into that 2x5 tube that goes from side to side on the front of this frame here. I bored a big hole and was able to, it turned out really good. It goes out of the water pump through that hole and then right down to the radiator. All that, it's all second, you second guess all this stuff, and it's kind of by the seat of your pants. You can't really think that out before you do it. So you have to make it work, but it always works out. There's always a means to an end. So all of that works. These rams, Debbie found these. I kind of gave her some parameters I needed to work with. I could have this or this, and she come up with these, and they couldn't be any better. So these are this pin. You take this bolt out, and this pin will slide out if you need to get the cab tilted more or whatever, for whatever reason, to pull the ram out. The bottom down here, this stud is welded through the frame. It's not just welded on the outside, it's welded through the frame and welded on the back side, comes out here. It's machined down to fit on this ram, and then this collar goes on with a set screw and a dimple in that shaft right there. So the rams work perfect. Really, everything on it works perfect. I can't say going down the road works perfect because I haven't had it down the road yet, but I suspect it's going to work perfect. This is, you got to give it just a little persuasion, and I can't reach the back there to push it down right now. I used to have this switch on a cable, but once the seats and the doors are in it, this will go down much quicker. It'll fall, it'll go down about probably like this is going down now. It's going down by itself, but it goes up so high that it actually almost wants to go forward. So that sits down, and then there's pins that go up through. I didn't point those out, but they go up through the floor, and I'll actually be able to put a clevis pin in those pins to pin it at the back. So in case of some kind of a bad accident, it would be held in 4 places. It wouldn't just flop. So let's see if there's enough air in the tank to raise the... So that would be max height. If I wanted to load it in a trailer or drive in a driveway, that's the front. Let's get the back up. I think my air tank's just about empty. I need to air it up. The back will go up a little bit higher than that, but that's all the air that's in the tank. So running boards are nice and high off the ground. That's too high. That's not ride height. I will never drive the truck at that high. But to get it over a bump or to work on it or whatever, that's where it would be. And then... So that would be kind of max low in the front. The back is so light, and it takes a while for the airbags to air down. When I get the bed built, it'll be much faster. It'll actually go so low in the back that I don't like it. It looks like the Carolina squat, and I can't stand that. So I'll stop it somewhere like that right there. If I'm at a show, I can drop the running boards to where they're that high off of the ground. It'll look good. If I want to cruise through a nice parking lot slow, I wouldn't drive it like that just because I don't want to bash the running boards. But I'll stop the front end just a little bit lower than that, and I'm going to notch that body up just a skosh so the tires have just a little, I want it to go just a little bit lower. But that's pretty much it. So the doors are painted, clear coated, done. The hinges, the hood hinges, the seats, the leathers here. One thing we did that's pretty cool, you can see it over here. Excuse this mess because this is for a project that we're working on that'll be out of here this week. we're going to put it in the PRI show, and it's going to go in the Iskandarian booth. Well, Meg, I asked her if she could do this, and she nailed it. You can see, come over this way a little bit. I'm going to cut the white border off of this so it looks like it's painted on here. But see the patina that's in the sticker? That same patina, see this right here? This is a magnet. That same patina is under the magnet. Look how that matches up. Is that not like the coolest thing since sliced bread? Look right here. See that? That streak. See the streak underneath? So those are magnets aged, and she aged them, superimposed that patina on top of them. I'm going to cut that white border off of it, and it looks like that was painted on there many years ago. That'll be on for the PRI show, and I just think it's cool as it can be. Those will be one-piece windows. You can see the, let me get this turned around. The backside of the doors are super nice. So I don't know if I'll leave those painted. I painted them just in case, but I have the leather in this box right here to finish the interior. So we got all the leather, the carpet. I'm not sure where it's at. I haven't seen it in a year. There's the headliner, the one-piece headliner that'll go up inside. It'll get wrapped with leather. The door handles, all just like the 55. All the external stuff that I can make nice is brand new. It's just the only thing that looks aged and old is the patina on the body. So yeah, I could have painted it. You know what? Then it becomes everybody else's truck. That's one of the things about the 55. We weren't patina people. Like my Nova is super painted, candy apple metallic. It's got lace in the roof. You know, it's very detailed. The Willys is candy apple blue with hand gold leaf lettering that I did. All that I've painted all my life. But we really like the patina on the 55. It's so nice to just, you can handle it however you want. This is kind of the same way. You'll never see a door dent or a scratch because the whole thing's a door dent and a scratch. And I love that about it. My theory is you only get that once. You can fake it, but this is the real deal. That truck is showing its age and its scars, its battle scars. It's hauled lots of stuff. I've still got the chassis out back that it had under it. It was even shorter than this, and big, heavy old tires and rear end and that 6-cylinder transmission. This thing worked. It had a big hitch back here, a pintle hitch. It hauled a lot of heavy stuff. So I just think it deserves to stay like it is, and I'm leaving it that way. If somebody ever gets it and wants to paint it, that's their choice. But I don't want another painted everyday cab over. Last thing I need to talk about is the bed. Everybody wants to know what kind of bed. Everybody thinks that I need to make it not everybody. A lot of people think I need to make it into a, what do you call them? Yeah, but what's that? Ramp truck. That's the word everybody uses. Wedge bed, ramp truck, whatever. And I've seen a few nice ones. I've seen a lot of them that I just don't. But here's my whole line of thought on that. I will haul a car with this truck 2% of the time of its miles and my time. Why would I want to haul a trailer around with me all the rest of the time? 98% of the time, this thing's not going to have a car attached to it. So why would I want a bed that I have to find a parking spot at a restaurant or wherever, way out, and I turn at a gas station, and most of those ramp trucks, the bed hangs back so far past the axle, you turn out in these gas stations, which we go to so many of them, and the back of the bed swings over and takes the gas pumps out. You know, it's just not friendly. So what I'm doing is building a 8-foot bed, and it's going to be rough sawn oak. Alex already got it for me for my birthday 3 or 4 years ago when I started this project. I think it's 1.5 inches. And the planks are, I think they're about 8 inches wide, maybe 10 inches wide. So I've got enough rough sawn oak to go on here, and I mean rough sawn. It's right out of the sawmill. So it matches the rough sawn body. And then all of the framework on the bed will be aluminum. I've got a whole stack of it back here. C-channel, I-beam, and angle iron, but it's all aluminum, will be welded together to make this bed. It'll have the gooseneck, and it'll have the bumper pull, and I will build a car hauling trailer. I've already got the axles. I've got 2 axles that are narrow, and I'll build a car hauling gooseneck, and I'll make it Art Deco. I want it to be like the 40s or so. And I'll probably, you know, when I say Art Deco, it'll probably have sides and a top on it, but you'll see the cars when they're loaded inside of it. It won't be closed. It'll be an open deal, and I'll be able to haul a couple cars in it. I can park that trailer. I can leave it sitting, and I can use this truck like a pickup. This thing will be so much fun to daily. I can park it. I want to go to Texas Roadhouse and park it in the parking lot. I don't want to park it a quarter mile away where I can find a parking spot for a 40-foot truck. This thing is short. It'll park in a regular parking spot. It's narrow. And I'm not going to build just a big rectangle flatbed. I really don't like them when the bed's out here. My bed's going to be to about here. So the front of it will be narrow. It'll stop right about here. It'll angle out. It's going to angle out this way. I'm going to have to put fenders over the tires. I really don't want to, but there's just no other way around it. It'll have a metal fender here. So it'll come out to here. It'll have a fender over it. Then it's going to come back here at an angle, just like that right there. It'll go across this flat spot here and do the same on the other side. So the bed will have shape to it. And then the aluminum I'll brush, just like the gas tank. I'll TIG weld everything together, brush the aluminum. It'll only be up about this high. I want the bed low. If I'm at a car show or a drag race, people want to jump on it, they can get on it easy. We're going to have at the PRI show, we'll have displays on the back of it. I didn't want a bed up here. I really don't like the looks of a pickup bed on them because it's not a pickup. It was never intended to have a pickup bed on it. They just look wrong to me when they have a pickup bed, because usually the pickup bed's down here. You know, on a pickup, it's up here. So to me, my opinion, they don't look right with a pickup bed, and I don't want a bed, you know, a regular bed. I want something bigger. If I want to screw something to it, I can screw to it. I can put mounts in it, and I can haul a couple motorcycles on here, dirt bikes, street bikes, whatever I want. I can probably, I've already looked at the possibilities of doing this. I think I can put the Isky T on the back of it. I may have to make an extension, and that's one of the things that I'll probably engineer into it, that I can slide an extension into receivers and make kind of a ducktail that might hang back another 14, 16 inches, but I can take that off, and I can have my license plate back here, my tail lights. But that's my plan. I might even put sides on it, maybe removable sides, maybe stake pockets. I'm not sure. I like the idea of some boards that run like this, but I won't have them on there all the time. I want it to be like a zipper. I want to be able to configure the bed any way I want, just be able to zip stuff off of it, put it on. I might even put some beer keg gas tank back here for split it and make it into a toolbox. Maybe make an actual toolbox back there that you can open up and put stuff in. So that's the plans for the bed, and that's coming up very soon, right after the interior. It could go to the show without a bed and look good. It can't go to the show without interior. So that's it. That's my cab over. I'm excited to get it done. Just been a long project, and it takes all my spare time if I have any. So stick around. I'll be doing videos as I finish this. You'll be able to see me building the bed, finishing the interior, finishing the fenders and the doors and the windows and all the stuff. Then we'll go for a test drive. It runs. It sounds really bitchin'. All right, I wanted to come back and let you hear it run. I didn't know if the battery was up to par, but it was. We just bumped it off and it started right up. So you hear the pump. It's cold right now. It will warm up and sound really good. I see 80 pounds of oil pressure sitting here. Looks like 14 volts. It revs, it's raspy. Let me get my mic back here. And it is cold. It needs a little bit of cold tuning. So there you go. It's running. It's ready to finish up. Thanks for watching. Keep an eye out because I'm going to be building this. I got to have it in 2 months. Thank you.